Yeah, it's 12:03, so I guess we'll get started. Hi, everybody. I'm John Smiley with
Hi, John.
the LWVMC climate team. I invited the Hoosier Interfaith Power and Light team to come speak to us today, and very glad they took us up on the offer. So we are the League of Women Voters in Montgomery County. We are a national nonpartisan organization that promotes democratic and civic participation amongst our members. And we do have male members. I'm one of them, about 20 to 25% of membership. And we have invited the Hoosier Interfaith Power and Light team here to talk to us. And they are going to tell you all about themselves, but their mission is to bring Hoosiers of faith together as stewards of creation to promote renewable energy, energy conservation, energy efficiency as a faith response to climate change. And with that, I will hand it off to Dory Chandler, who is the interim executive director.
That's correct.
All right, and she will have a presentation for us.
Okay, great. And it's all right, John, if I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can you all see that all right?
Yes.
Okay. So hey, everyone. Thank you for welcoming HIPL today. This has been on our radar for some time, and I'm really glad to be with you all today. The first political debate I attended as a constituent in Indiana was actually put on by the League, and that kick-started my interest in lobbying and talking to representatives. So I'm really impressed by your commitment to democracy, education, and political discourse and dialogue. I think it is essential to our communities, strengthening our political institutions, and solving large-scale problems, both in Indiana and around our country. So my name, as John said, is Dory Chandler, and I'm the interim executive director for HIPL. And with me today, I also have Sophia Hall, who's our ISGP HIPL summer intern, and we've been really, really excited and glad to have her on the team this summer. So briefly, I'm going to do a little bit more introduction about HIPL and who am I, and get a little chance to learn a little bit more about you all and what in our faith motivates us to action on climate. And then talk briefly, we'll go kind of through a little taste of our advocacy training, because I think that applies really well to the League's work. Talk a little bit about our policy and our advocacy engagement work, and then transition into how, from the grassroots level, your congregation and your homes and your communities can get involved in some of the programs that we're currently working on. So as John said, we're HIPL. We bring together members of the faith community from around Indiana, from all different faiths, philosophies, and spiritual traditions to promote renewable energy, energy conservation, and efficiency as a faith response to climate change. We feel that no matter what faith tradition or philosophy we come from, care for the earth is an essential element to being a citizen on this earth. So HIPL is a part of a national organization. We have affiliate groups across 40 of the 50 states. And as Reverend Susan Hendershot, our IPL president, says, climate change is a moral issue disproportionately impacting those who are most vulnerable in our world. That is why we do the work we do. And it's really cool to see that we are in complete alignment with the League. The National League believes that climate change is a serious threat facing our nation and planet, and that an international approach to combating climate change, including through energy conservation, air pollution controls, building resilience, and promoting of renewable resources, is necessary to protect public health and defend the overall integrity of the global ecosystem. So that is really cool that we are in such strong alignment on that. And HIPL has been working for years to do just that work. So we were founded in 2011 by members of various faiths across Indiana. And we have affiliates across the state in Evansville, Kokomo, Bloomington, Indianapolis, and Fort Wayne. And those are affiliate groups are made up of communities of many congregations of different faith denominations who come together to work on this and support one another. And we have specific values that guide our work, including inclusivity, tenacity, caring for the earth, integrity, cooperation, urgency, clarity of focus, and credibility, science. So, and some of our accomplishments, we've supported and continue to support 50 green teams across the state. Those are green teams are groups of people within congregations that help educate the community and do projects within their own communities. And we've also helped over 50 congregations get solar panels. We are the moral voice to a just transition to renewable energy and a just transition on a number of different issues. We've been involved in the Indianapolis Harding Street coal-fired power plant transition from coal to natural gas. We led the fight against Senate Bill 309, which is an anti-net metering or anti-solar bill. And every year we hold the Renewable Energy Lobby Day at the State House, which you are all invited to. And we're committed to environmental justice. We work with Sierra Club's Beyond Coal Coalition to fight against burdensome rate increases in utilities and really try to protect lower income communities from increases in energy prices. And we lead workshops across the state. So if you would like to host us in your congregation to come do a workshop like this or others, just invite us and we'd love to come out. And we also support congregations in their work. And Sophia will tell you a little bit more about that today for how you can actually do this work in your congregations and homes through our UEP and Thriving Faith Communities programs. So in our world today, facts are important. I will share some facts, but it's the narrative that sways hearts and minds. So when I go into lobby meetings or with policymakers in Indiana or Washington, D.C., or in conversations in my place of worship, I know that the best place to start is with my own story. So for me, there was a specific moment when my faith and appreciation for the natural world collided. I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is the foothills of the state. And there are hardwood forests, birds, and creeks filled to the brim with life. It's just a beautiful place. And every Saturday, my family would head to services at our local synagogue about a mile away from our house. And in between my house, my parents' house, and the congregation, there was a huge park and many stands of trees. And at first, I used to drive in the car with my parents to services, but after a while, I started walking to meet them there. And my walks eventually got longer and longer as I noticed the beauty around me. And I would eventually make it to services in time for lunch. But along the way, I found spirituality and faith in the natural world. So in my own faith tradition, in Genesis, it says, on the fourth day of creation, God had already created heaven and earth, water and sky, earth and seas, and vegetation and fruit trees. And God then said, let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate day from night. They shall serve as a sign for the set times, the days and the years, and they shall serve as lights in the expanse of the sky to shine upon the earth. And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater to dominate the day, the sun, and the lesser to dominate the night, the moon and the stars. And God set them in the expanse to shine upon the earth, to dominate the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw this was good. Stars and sun and moon, they already give light to creation. So what was the point of continuing on with day 5 and 6 of creation and creating human beings, frankly? So 50 years ago, on December 24th, 1968, Apollo 8, the first manned mission to the moon, it entered lunar orbit. And that evening, the astronauts, Commander Frank Borman and pilots Jim Lovell and William Anders, held a live broadcast from space. And they tried to explain and describe the experience of this. And we're only able to capture a tiny bit of the power of the experience with a picture of Earth as seen from their spacecraft. And this is the famous Earthrise picture. Lovell was quoted as saying, "The vast loneliness is awe-inspiring and it makes you realize just what you have back there on Earth." They ended the broadcast with the crew taking turns reading from the book of Genesis. This picture catalyzed much of the environmental movement of the 60s, leading to the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and the creation of the EPA. When you can observe what you have in its entirety, it makes it that much more special. So many of our faith traditions speak of the connection between the natural world and our need to protect it. For example, St. Francis of Assisi expressed God's love for all of creation as a reminder that humans have a responsibility to care for the well-being of creation. Other traditions call to repair the world through mindfulness. In Buddhism, which is non-theistic, the entire web of life is interconnected and interdependent. And through the method of transformation, of transformative power, both individually and collectively, we can move away from difficulty, abuse of the natural world, with wisdom and compassion towards ethical action and speech. And in the Quran, God created the earth for all living creatures, and that there's no animal on earth or any bird that wings its flight, but it is a community like you. So other philosophies and guiding principles come out of science and reason, or preschool, as it may be, which tell us to take care of our earth, even to save ourselves from extinction and live better lives free from pests and extreme weather events and drastic environmental degradation. So we can keep going on, but I'd love to hear from some of you. What is something from your faith or philosophy tradition that motivates you to act on the environment? And feel free, we're a small group here, so feel free to share, or you can also put in the chat if you would like. So feel free to unmute yourself and share if you'd like. What motivates you?
This is Mark speaking here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm also a member of St. John's community, and also interested in Buddhism, and a lifelong passionate advocate and student of the natural world. It's my belief that everything leans upon nature, and that God, mysterious as he or she is found in the various communities of organisms that populate this planet. That my feeling is that we're all of a piece. Evolution has taught us our deep relationship with all creatures, great and small. And so it's just part of, I should think, any faith tradition that we try to live in harmony, which is very difficult given our worldwide technological civilization, but we try our best to be good caregivers to this creation and try to keep it going as best we can in these times that are desperately pessimistic in terms of the transformation of our planet owing to climate change and all of our human activity destroying the ecosystems of the planet. So we have our work cut out for us, but I believe all religious faiths must keep this at the heart of their actions.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciated that image of all the microorganisms and all the interconnectedness. It's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dory, I come to this work from the Christian tradition and enter into the conversation through the lens of stewardship, that life is gift, and as receivers of gifts, we're called to steward those gifts. And that means caring for each other, caring for creation, caring for our planet. So I appreciate the conversation, both from what Mark said and also from the stewardship lens.
That's beautiful. It is a gift. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Libby. All right, well, please feel free to continue sharing in the chat, and it's just so empowering that all of us can share that similar message and intention. So it seems that all of our faiths and philosophies in some way encourage us to be partners in this world, to help release light, to protect and admire our earth, being stewards of it, create art, help one another find beauty, and facilitate equality, increase joy, and live lives of meaning and purpose. And there are also, as Mark was sharing, there are also many forces that counteract that light, whether or not that's through money, greed, or power. And this is where I believe that religion and advocacy can come together. It's not enough to live your morals and values for yourself, but to create a society that is reflective of this. So this can only happen once we change systems and policies that are a negation of these values and principles we hold dear. This doesn't mean that we necessarily insert our faith traditions into these systems, but we can use them as a compass to help guide us this way, and in partnership with sound and credible science. So HIPPL uses 3 frameworks for our advocacy efforts towards social justice and environmental justice, creating a society that's fair, equal, and by extension, environmentally sustainable. And these can be carried out in our communities through, we believe, 3 frameworks. One is the creative or spiritual framework. The other is a legal or political framework. And lastly, a social framework. And during our advocacy trainings, which I'd love to have more time to do more of these activities with you today, but feel free to have us back. We do practice in listening. We direct and focus our intentions, and then we speak or act truth to power. So a quick example of this, for the creative framework, we take a challenging problem and think about unique or different ways to solve them, inspired by our greater spiritual awareness. And our faith communities might have vastly different faith perspectives, but finding commonalities is one way that we move forward to work together. For example, to close or transition 4 of the 22 largest super polluters in the United States, which are in Indiana and are coal-fired power plants. One of which is the Edwardsport Plant. The power plant is in Knox County, but serves Duke utility customers throughout Indiana, including Montgomery County. And it costs ratepayers millions of dollars to maintain this coal-fired power plant, and it also causes public health and environmental concerns such as asthma and heart disease and lead contamination, leading to human health effects and water contamination and much more. So at HIPPL, we work to address climate change and extension, other environmental impacts, and we learn how to talk to people who may disagree with us or come from different perspectives. So we work to develop and hone skills at HIPPL and help our congregants to do the same. So for example, in the Yale climate change opinion maps in Montgomery County, an estimated 60% of respondents believe that climate change is happening, and 53% believe that this is changing the weather. This is having an impact locally. Yet only 33% say that it will affect me personally. And just under half of people are really worried or concerned about this. People think it will affect folks in other countries or in the future. Yet we know, and this was just in the Courier recently, that the forest fires in California not only impacted air quality in California, but throughout the United States. And it said, smoke from Western wildfires affected air quality in Indiana with the fine particulate matter. So we're all connected, and nature really doesn't have the same borders that we do. So then how do we come together, and how do we navigate difference? Well, it turns out that actually most people, 83% in Montgomery County, are supportive of policy changes that include regulating CO2 emissions and making fossil fuel companies pay taxes, setting more limits on coal-fired power plants, and educating our communities about this issue. Why? Because these are good policies, regardless of people's perceptions of climate change or of the issue. These just make sense for our community. So HIPPL works at this level, and we try to find commonalities, and we try to support policies that really unite us in these messages, because we can find ways to move forward together. So we work at the policy level, and I've shared a little bit with you today about that. And we also work at the grassroots level to engage members of the faith community, regardless of where they are on specific issues. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sophia, And she's going to tell us a little bit about how you can get your congregation involved in this work through our previous programs that we've been working diligently on through our green teams and using energy prudently, but also through a new initiative called Thriving Faith Communities.
All right, thank you, Dory. This wonderful presentation so far. It's my first time seeing it, so I'm really enjoying it. Hope you all are too. So Thriving Faith Communities is a program that I've been working on this summer as an intern. Let me minimize this here so I can see this. And basically, it is an initiative that was created to help congregations adhere to the Thrive Indianapolis plan that was put in place in 2020. That called for a 20% reduction of overall energy usage in Indianapolis, but Thriving Faith Communities aims to get congregations to reduce their energy usage by 25% over 3 years. And that seems like a large number, but it really is attainable and has been even exceeded by several congregations in Indiana. So that's really exciting. So we encourage congregations to do that and their members to do the same at home. I'm not sure how to get this slide. Okay, thank you, Dory. So this program, there's no requirements to sign up or consequences if you can't reach the goal or a fee that you pay to us. It's a 3-year program, and the only real built-in cost is $200 for the Energy Stewards program, which is this really great online tool that you can use to identify problems in your building, things where you could save energy and repairs that you could make, stuff that you might never notice and just be basically throwing money out the window had you not been keeping track of it. So that's a tool that's been really useful for a lot of congregations that work with Hipple. So Hipple will help you in this program and guide you. You'll have a coach that's assigned to your congregation that can put you in contact with any building consultants or contractors, and we'll do educational events and just sort of guide you and support you in your journey throughout those 3 years, and work really closely with your congregation. So as Dory mentioned before, there are a lot of green teams already formed around the state, and part of the goal of Thriving Faith Communities is to connect these teams and connect these congregations that have this shared passion for creation care. So to complete the program, you'll need a small but dedicated team of congregants and leaders in your congregation to take on these tasks for 3 years, whether it's making updates to your building or encouraging energy efficient practices. I know people talk about little things like turning off the lights, but there's also occupancy sensors and installing those in your rooms so that the lights aren't always on when no one's in there, or little things and big things. That is kind of what your Thriving Faith Communities team will take on. And then if your congregation really gets into it and excited about it, you can expand and create a broader group that does any kind of environmentally friendly project. I know one congregation created a rain garden, if I'm correct, and that was a really lovely addition to their grounds. So those are kind of the 2 groups that you would be working in your congregation. And you can get started with those if that sounds exciting to you and you think you might have the interest by, of course, signing up for the Thriving Faith Communities program and talking to your coach about who within your congregation might be best suited and most excited to help you with the projects that you take on in the beginning. And then reaching out and seeing who would be willing to volunteer. So yeah, one thing that people get really excited about when we talk about energy efficiency is going solar, right? Getting solar panels installed, because it's exciting. It's a new technology. You want to say oh, we're a solar congregation, we have this. And while that is something that would come along later in the program after we've done energy conservation, it is something that Hipple can help facilitate. Your coach can guide you in this process, and we have connections and people who can speak on their experiences and sort of guide you to who you need to talk to and just really make that process a lot clearer. So we already have, there's more than 50 congregations in Indiana that have gone solar. We're trying to connect these, congregations and create a support network. That's something that with the TFC program, we're trying to create cohorts, is how we refer to it, because it's really valuable to have a point of contact and to have someone at another congregation that you can reach out to and say, hey, who did you get to install this, and what were your bids like? So it's definitely something that you would not be the guinea pig for if your congregation decided to do this, but you would have a network to reach out to. So that's really exciting to us. That being said, we do believe in energy conservation first, and all of these big updates like solar second. Places of worship you think about in Indiana, we have a lot of cavernous old churches with poor insulation, and these beautiful old buildings sometimes can have things that no one's checked in on in years, and there's a lot of conservation to be done, and emissions from utility are a huge chunk of carbon emissions in the United States. So we do focus on conserving and looking at, okay, what are we wasting? What can we cut back on? What can we tighten up before we do these big updates? And the reason for that is it makes more sense to stop the leak, so to speak, to stop all of these extra emissions before we add on and make these updates. So there will be a period of time where you're doing a lot of conservation in your congregation, and when you join this program and start making these changes and rethinking sort of your philosophy around energy, it's going to have positive impacts, not just on your congregation, but also in your home, in your congregants' homes, and in your broader community. As far as your congregation goes, obviously there are some serious financial reasons to consider this. We had an event yesterday in Huntington, and there was a woman who said she worked in, I want to say she called it like capital projects, but she looked at investment returns, and she said that green updates and energy efficiency updates always not only made back their investments, but did so faster than they were anticipated to. Like it really pays off to make this investment. And so in the short term and the long term, for instance, we have here, if you spend roughly 12 grand on utility bills in your congregation annually, reducing your energy usage by the target of 25% could save you up to $3,000, which it's not, not pocket change. That's something to consider. And also taking on a project like this will engage your community in a new way. A lot of young people are excited about this, and a lot of the time, if you just say, hey, we're taking this on, this is something we're excited about that we're committing to, people will come out and say, oh, I'm interested in that, and I'm willing to help. And that's what we've seen in a lot of congregations that we work with. So, and then other than the increased engagement and the financial savings, this is really a way to put your faith values into action and take your role as a steward seriously in a concrete way that it's very satisfying to see the results of and see the direct impact of your values in action. So, and then as far as in your home, obviously, again, significant savings on utilities, but I think it would also help to stay connected with your congregation's journey if you're both taking on these sort of projects at the same time and keep you conscious of your impact on the environment. And we have a way to help congregants stay involved and stay engaged in this program in their homes while their TFC team is working in their congregation. And that's called the Task of the Month program. So we have basically smaller scale tasks designed to be taken on like within your home. Everything from reducing the number of dryer loads you run, like hanging clothes to dry, like little sort of daily practices, to installing faucet aerators or replacing old light bulbs, little things that compiled, you'll start to see the difference. And yeah, we have tasks for pretty much the entirety of the duration your congregation will be working on this. We have a way for congregants to stay engaged at home. So that would be something that we would provide if you joined the program. And then as far as your broader community, reducing your carbon emissions obviously is good for your community. It's going to boost public health in terms of air quality, water quality is improved when we put less nasty stuff in the air, and protect your local ecosystem. For those of you who are really into outdoor recreation, you know, Indiana's a beautiful place. I personally love to go out and hike and camp and paddle, and we want to see those places that we love and places that help us connect to our spirituality preserved, you know? And it'll also help foster better living conditions for your community. Again, Dory spoke about the human health impacts of greenhouse gases. Mitigating that as much as we can is a good way to care for our neighbors. And hopefully, if your congregation takes this on, perhaps other congregations or people in your community will see that and be inspired by that. And it would help really build this network in Indiana and in your community. So that's kind of the big picture. Taking on these tasks can help all of us. And it seems like it's a small thing, but we really have the power in Indiana to make a huge impact if we come together and take this on. But it does depend on if we are willing to commit. If we're willing to make these little changes and do the sort of non-glamorous, dirty work of, okay, well, I gotta install this little sensor, and I gotta do this with thermostat, and I gotta remember to shut the windows. To me, it's exciting because it's like, oh, I can do something. There's something attainable I can do right now every day that I know compiled will have this impact. But it's about making the effort and choosing to take this on. So just, yeah, if you are looking to get started, Dory's got some tips. So
thank you.
So just briefly, two more slides, and then we could open it up. So just quickly, some ways that you can get involved. Thank you, Sophia. You can start a green team. You can join Thriving Faith Communities, and you can also advocate with us. We have a faith climate statement coming out within the next couple of weeks. We would love to have your congregation and your denomination sign on. This is specific to faith communities in Indiana calling for climate action at the State House. We are also working, collaborating with a number of groups, including Citizens Climate Lobby and Confront the Climate Crisis, which is a group of youth, on a climate emergency bill. And we'd love to have your advocacy to get this through the State House this year. So that's in process at the moment, and we're happy to share that with you and your communities. And we're also working every year with a coalition of partners around the state. We have Renewable Energy Lobby Day, and we're working on legislation that you all can support in 2022. And another way you can get involved, we work on the integrated resource planning processes. Duke Utility is having a meeting coming up, I think this coming week. And we participate in the integrated resource planning process every 5, 10, 15 years. The utilities make a decision about where they get their energy from. And we as faith and moral voices attend these hearings and share our concern for staying with antiquated energy sources, and promotes and really push the utilities to move in a different direction. So you can attend that hearing in person, or also get your communities to deliver public comments to your utilities. And then we also have a couple of upcoming events. Our Faith Climate Summit is October 10th at Teeter Farm in Noblesville, not too far away. We'd love to have your participation. It'll be a really wonderful afternoon of engagement, and it's all outdoors. Hopefully the weather will support us in that. And then we also have a fall cohort for Thriving Faith Communities starting soon. If you are engaged and your congregation is excited and ready to go, you can register on our website, HoosierIPL.org/Thriving Faith Communities, and join. It's really exciting. We're going to have speakers and educators and be your coach, as Sophia was talking about, and also get audits for your congregation. So hope you'll join us and be the voice for moral change here in Indiana and be our partner in this work together. So happy to take questions or have a conversation here. I don't know, John, could pass it back to you or Helen too.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone have any questions for Dory and Sophia? I could probably pose a few.
One observation, Sophia or Dory, from the Christian contribution to the conversation, have you been in conversation with Center for Congregations in Indianapolis? That is a Lilly Endowment funded organization that would give lots of support and reach to the great work that you're doing. So good. Sounds like Dory's in touch.
We've had a little bit, yeah. And they're very supportive of congregations getting energy audits in their buildings. So we'll be doing some collaboration on that together for that piece.
And I didn't know if there was a workshop you could do through them that they would host just to try and increase your reach some. I think what you're doing is really, really important, and just want to be sure everyone across the state of Indiana has access to you.
Thank you. That's a great, really, really great suggestion. Thank you.
Are you encouraged by the response you're getting from Indiana congregations, or is this a slower slog than what you would hope for?
A combination of both. I think this last year through COVID, it was a little bit harder to engage, but we do have in our first cohort, we have 12 congregations throughout the state who are committed. And then we have congregations previously who have been using the software that Sophia was talking about and have been working on this for the last number of years. We think, between 7 and 8 years, some congregations have been working on this. And then we have another cohort starting up in Huntington where Sophia and Ray were last night. So that's really exciting. So if you want a Crawfordsville cohort, we would love to support that and get some, good competition going or faith support for this work together in your community.
I love it.
Really cool.
I love it. Great idea. And I know there are other questions, but do you have success stories of some congregations that are doing this really well? I know in my own tribe, St. Thomas in Bloomington is sort of known as a green congregation.
We do. Bloomington has a lot, but we also have another congregation in Elkhart and one in Bloomington who recently actually we have a video on our YouTube page about energy efficiency as a method for decarbonization, and 2 congregations gave their stories, and they both have, I think it's 96 and 97% Energy Star rating in their congregations. So, and Ray, who's on the call, his congregation also is up in the 90s. So,
all right, Ray.
Yeah.
I have a question as well. Helen and I are members of or work sometimes with the Hoosier Environmental Council, and I was just wondering what sort of contact or collaborations you might have with the Hoosier Environmental Council, which is obviously concerned with the very same issues and does some of the very same work, especially, of course, working at the State House to kind of encourage people to think about the environment and climate change and so forth.
Oh, that's a great question, Mark. So the coalition that I refer to, statewide coalition of different environmental groups, utility consumer advocacy groups, solar producers and installers. What else? Even conservative communities around the state. We're all in a coalition to do policy work at the State House. So we collaborate on Renewable Energy Lobby Day and on different policy initiatives. So last year we collaborated on a net metering, which we tried to repeal the end of net metering through SB 309 so that solar, basically we could get fair market value for the solar that we put on our congregations and homes. And so we partner all the time with Hoosier Environmental Council on work like that. And
I suspected that was the case. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm actually super interested in what you mentioned about the utility IRP process and how I can inject myself into that.
Okay. Yeah, I can get you more information about that, John.
Great. Yeah, because those always seem so shadowy. And if you're not like on top of it, it's like, wait, that happened?
Yeah, it's really interesting how utilities make decisions. NIPSCO, which is a large utility provider in Northeast Indiana, did an open RFP where they asked, what is the cheapest method for getting energy? And actually, solar and wind, not surprisingly, won out. But a lot of the utilities still have stakes in coal because they either own it or have already committed to buying coal for a number of years. And so they're burning it for burning its sake. Duke Energy is one of those ones that they say they have an open stakeholder process and that they're looking at different pathways towards decarbonization, but it's clear that the financial piece is the most important to them when it comes to the different scenarios. So we really need to be that moral voice to remind them this is the best for our communities.
John, this is Ray Wilson. I'll just add to that. On Wednesday, August 4th, is the third round of the IRP for Duke. And I think if you get on that right away, you should probably you can get yourself invited to that session. It starts, I think, at 9:30, probably officially at 10 o'clock, and then runs until 2 or so in the afternoon. So it's a time off for lunch. It's an investment in time. But this one should be quite interesting because they'll be talking about some of the reports that they've gotten back on prices of energy. And we're at the point now we really have to hold their feet to the fire. Duke's a big supplier in Indiana. I'll just tell another little story. The one congregation that just joined Energy Stewards through HIPPO, in the process of signing up for that, they acknowledged that this last year, Duke had been having them pay somebody else's electric bill. They actually were using the wrong.
They were reading the wrong meter.
Yeah, it was the wrong. Yeah, so I think we're paying two bills, and I have yet to figure out how they really figured this out, but they did, fortunately. And so things like this happen. So yeah, join in. The more voices we can get, the more important Duke pays attention.
Yeah, I'll be out of town, but I would love to drop a public comment if there's an online forum.
You can definitely do that.
And Ray, where do you serve in Indiana?
I'm in Indianapolis, and I'm as Dory mentioned, I'm chair of Hoosier Interfaith Power and Light right now. And my congregation is the Unitarian Universalist Church of Indianapolis. Great. And if Sophie would have shown the slides that she has there about what we presented last night up in Huntington, we have congregations, we were talking about this 25%, everybody gets a little anxious on that's really a lot. But our congregation now has been working at it for a number of years, but we have reduced our energy consumption by over 50%. And it's saving us in the range of, I think it was $10,000-$12,000 a year. That's not, for our congregation, it's not large. Yep. And the other thing I always like to add about this is that by our doing this and communicating it to our parishioners, it's changed the culture of our church. And it's bringing in young people. Sophie last night, I said to the people, her comment was that, when she was in high school, she was desperately looking for where she could do something important. And if some congregation would have said, Sophie, how would you like to help us work on energy conservation in our church? she would have been on it like a blanket. And that's what we're seeing at our congregation. There are young couples coming to our church, and they'll come up to me and say something about, well, look at this. My electric bill says that I am the lowest electric user of the nearest 100 customers around me. Why would they do that? Well, it's because it's really important. So this concept that we hopefully will get started up in Huntington, where they're going to, the mayor initiated this. He said, I'd like my community to really start getting serious about this conservation stuff. And so he invited us there to make this presentation. And we have the standing invitation to go back in a couple months when they get themselves organized a little bit better, where we're hoping that 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 congregations will sign up, and then they can work in a group. And that's when the action really happens.
Great.
And again, if you look at the dollars of this, if you get 10 congregations in a smaller community, 15, 17,000 people, and they start saving 25%, all of a sudden you're saving $50,000 a year. And then the mother lode of this whole thing is if you get the congregants in those churches or synagogues, whatever, to do this, then you get up to like $500,000.
Yeah, social contagion.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's the potential's there. And as one of our former leaders in Hippo used to say, if we can do this in Indiana,
right,
and we can do it anywhere.
Amen.
And so we have our work cut out for us. But just, I think this morning, there was an article, I haven't actually seen it in the paper, but a number of evangelical pastors had an op-ed saying, we got to get on this. And our legislators have got to figure out this is serious business. We need to do this. And that's going to be sort of turning the tide when you start getting people, the pastors of these evangelical churches around the state saying that, then things are going to happen. So Crawfordsville, join in.
Amen. Thanks, Ray. Appreciate your story there.
You're welcome.
Yeah, these are the slides Ray was talking about, where you can see just how much there, in the beginning, even when the program wasn't as refined, that it was absolutely possible to reduce your energy usage by 25% or more. And then we have, let me see if I can do the next thing. As far as financial savings go, this is what he was referring to. If you reduce your energy by these numbers, you're taking this much carbon out of the atmosphere and saving thousands of dollars. And on the, once you get your congregants involved on that scale, you can save a lot of money for your community. And like you said, if we can do it in Indiana, we can do it anywhere. Indiana is a really impactful place to work because we are such bad greenhouse gas emitters. If we can commit to doing this work in Indiana, not only is it going to be like really great for our communities, but also it's going to have an even larger impact like on the national scale. So yeah, please consider. It's a great program, and it's really rewarding. And just the stories that I've heard from Ray and from representatives of congregations around Indiana, it's really brought their community together.
Wonderful. And thanks, everybody. I'd like to jump in about what Ray just mentioned about the evangelical pastor who wrote the letter to the editor, a public statement to that effect. If we could get that shared, I think that would be wonderful. The first part of my question was going to say, do you have a couple of mega churches or giant evangelical non-denominational congregations that have jumped on board? Because here we are in rural West Central Indiana, and we've got several of those in our community. If one of those, especially the cornerstone one of those, we could breach, as it were, with this word, even though we know individuals in there, and I'm not sure how one makes those final links. That would be would be great. But I think just counting those few of us who are here today in person, we already have represented 4 or 5 different churches. And so we are poised to be able to do, you know, a kind of a, what's the word you use for that? The coalitions, whatever, the cohorts, right? Yeah. So those are my main questions. And then we have 2 congregations that I know are quite actively interested in pursuing this all the way through. And we'll see if we can get some leadership from there. Yeah.
That would be excellent, Helen. That would be really wonderful.
And Tom Klein is still on the call too. Tom's our county administrator. And I'm sure especially those percentages that you showed at the end of your show, Dory, are exceptionally important to us moving forward and to get some social contagion going beyond churches into the county so it becomes a community effort. Yeah, thank you. Sorry for my hoarse voice.
Yeah, and to answer your question about the evangelical community, we do have some members. We work with some in Indianapolis community, Englewood Christian Church, and we have a pastor there I think would be willing to connect. And then we also work in collaboration. There's another group that's specifically focused on evangelical environmental outreach. So if you have individuals who would like to have a conversation with someone from their community to get engaged and to talk to them about this, we can connect them.
And you can always bring up Elsa working with the young folks in the evangelical.
Yeah, our HIPPL organizer is a member of, she just came out of, graduated Notre Dame and identifies as an evangelical and just finished the young evangelical environmental internship this last year through her work. So.
I do have a comment. The net metering, I believe, is set to expire next July. So for congregations that do want to go solar, unless the law changes, to get the full financial benefit of that, you're going to want to act quickly.
That is very true. So solar, if you want to put on solar now is the time. And we partner for you or your congregation. We also work with another organization called Solar United Neighbors, that if you want to get solar on your homes, they're a good avenue to go for because they do bulk purchasing and vetting of different solar bids. But for your congregation also, now would definitely be the time to get solar.
Tell me that name one more time, Dory, the partner you recommend.
Solar United Neighbors.
And I would add to that there's another sister organization called Solarize Indiana. And in different parts of the state, they trade off as who you'd want to talk to. But either one would get you started. Solarize Indiana has a website as well as Solar United Neighbors.
Yeah, they're great. I reached out to them for some advice.
So we're happy to take a look at your bid for your congregation and give you some feedback on that, or connect you with other congregations in the area who have done solar, if that would be helpful. And Sun is really helpful for more of the if you're interested in getting solar now and kind of talking through the details. And Sophia just put some links in the chat for those.
Oh, that's great. Thanks.
Do you do anything with HVAC or heat pumps to decarbonize building heat?
Ray, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I'll if I can get I'm off. I have a little story about that. So at my congregation, we have several buildings, and some of them are quite old. Anyway, just about a month or a half ago, we ended up having one of the air conditioners go bad in one of the smaller buildings, and we decided, well, we will just replace it with a heat pump. And so I went to 2 vendors. I try to make this a shorter story, but we said we want to keep this gas furnace that's in here, but we want to augment it with a heat pump so that most of the time we're going to be using electricity. And we have lots of solar panels at my church. And both of them came back with bids that were like, one was like 12,500, another was 9,500. And both of them didn't listen to what we asked, which was we want to save the furnace we already have. And well, anyway, so I was sharing this with one of my engineer friends in church, and he said, Ray, we can buy the heat pump for $2,500. Ray, we can do this ourselves. So right now we're in the midst of installing our heat pump, and we're convinced we're going to get a better job, and it'll be probably $4,000 instead of $9,500 or $12,500. And this is taking another step, but the fact that you asked that question tells me you know what you're interested in. My congregation has signed something we call it the Paris Pledge, which says we're committed to get down to zero carbon emissions by 2050, and we're going to get there long before then, I'm sure. But anyway, we had another huge rooftop unit that was gas fired that heats and cools our whole sanctuary, and it needed to be replaced. And we actually decided we're going to spend some extra money and put a heat pump up there rather than go back with gas. And there's stories that I can share with you after all that happened, but
that's great.
The congregation said, nope, we're putting our money where our mouth is. So.
Yep. For those who don't know, a heat pump basically works like an AC unit, but in both directions. So you can heat and cool your home with electricity. And whereas a gas furnace is maximum 99% efficient, a heat pump can be up to 250, 300% efficient.
Right. Yeah, that's what we're all going to have to do. And so our plan is, as we need to replace additional furnaces or air conditioners, that's where we're going to go. The only trick is you have to figure out how to do it just before it's going to stop working, because it usually does it on Christmas Eve, you know.
Yeah, it requires a bit more planning. It's not like a light bulb that you can go pick up at the store. If it goes out, you need to plan in advance. And I'm there right now with my home AC unit, which is about 30 years old. So I need to do some planning and get rid of that. We are at 1 o'clock. Is there any last minute question?
John, just before you go away, if you look into these low temperature heat pumps at this point. They're really something.
Oh yeah, I'm on top of it.
Okay, good.
And I
questions
here, also in the chat if anyone wants to reach out with additional questions.
Great. Yeah, no additional questions, John. Just affirmation for all of you all's good work and steadfastness in raising awareness and faithfulness on this issue. Really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
Libby, Libby, will you be with us at Wabash now? I mean, you're on the staff there now, is that correct?
I am on the staff there, and then I direct a program that Lilly Endowment funds and Wabash College hosts. So I'm in a network of over 100 pastors across the state of Indiana. And so I'm not serving a congregation other than when I fill in. But this is really good to spread the news about.
Exactly. It's just a whole new way of thinking of how to use, we're members of the Wabash family, just thinking of ways to use where you are in position with our community and the others around the state. So thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. And thanks for looping me in. I really appreciate your attentiveness to that. Thank you.
All right.